Hello friends, welcome back to another episode of Cricut Cartridge Review. On this episode, as promised, we are going to cut out our first shape. Now what I wanted to show you this week was how I made this card, and the shape that we're cutting out, let me switch this out, is from Campin Critters. It is the very first shape button on here, so button number 1. We are going to do the layers from this beginning section here at the bottom of the picture to layer 1 and layer 2 to assemble this. Now what I did that was a little bit different for this episode is I did not use the standard colors. In every cartridge there's like a sample picture with actual colors that you can use, and this would have turned out really cute in these colors. But instead what I used was this paper pad from Stella Rose. It's from My Mind's Eye, called Stella and Rose, I should get that correctly, and it's the Hattie papers that are the 6x6 paper pad. Now what's nice about this paper pad, I'm just going to turn it on its side, is all of these papers coordinate with one another. So what I've done is I've chosen some of the colors that I think would work best as substitutes for these colors. So let's say instead of the black skunk that I chose this darker piece of paper here, and that's what I've done here on this cutout. You can see, whoops, let me hold it right side up, on this cutout that I've chosen to cut out the black skunk base piece on that. Now to get that piece you are going to cut out shape number 1 by pressing just that button number 1 on your keypad. I'm going to leave that there for a second as we go through these. For the next piece I chose for the outhouse shape, so instead of this green outline shape here, I chose this pattern paper, which was some striped lines, and I think this highlighted all of the colors, so I wanted that as the main background piece, which in this case would be the outhouse. So that's my next piece. Now for the next piece I did the layer 1, and to get that piece you can see I chose a coordinating paper, and so my selection had to do with this. I wanted something that would work with this paper for the outhouse, and this one seemed to coordinate really nicely. So those are my two outhouse pieces. And then this one that is hard to see right there is the white pieces. Now instead of just doing plain white, I chose a white pattern paper. So this is the one that I selected. So it's mainly white, but you can see there is a pattern in there. And then for the layer 2 pieces, now those show up as light gray, and in the actual photograph it's mostly white. It's his eyes and that little tip of his nose and this little piece of toilet paper that you can hardly see right here stuck to the base of the outhouse. So for those pieces, rather than do gray, what I chose was to do this light blue and white textured pattern paper. But instead of just doing that, I cut it out twice. And let me bring the card back so you can see what I'm talking about. So I did most of those pieces, and there's a piece here on the toilet paper, and there's a piece here by his nose. So I did most of those in that pattern, but for the eyes themselves I recut it a second time in just white because I wanted those to stay white. Okay, so I'm going to cut those pieces out and show you how I assembled this card. Be back in just a moment. Okay, so here are some of my pieces to start the base image. Now this piece was a shadow piece that was on the layer button, and it was the shift version, and on the actual sample it showed it as sort of a cream color, so I've made mine a little bit of a yellow color. Now on my finished sample that I did show you, I had a lot of the pieces inked. Just because of time I'm not going to do that on this. I'm just going to go ahead and start assembling. And again, I'm using my glue pen because I think that's a really great way to do some of these Cricut shapes, and lets you get in all of those little tiny images in all the little corners and things. So I'm just going to do the layering here to let you see how those start to assemble together. And of course, if you want to do the inking, you're going to take your time and ink those pieces up before you assemble them. And my finished sample that I'll show you again here in just a minute actually has all of the inking done. For this particular project I used the Stampin' Up! Classic stamp pad called Pacific Point, and I really like this color with this Stella and Rose paper. It worked well. I'm also going to use close to cocoa as I assemble the base piece to the card itself, and I'll show you that. I just made a little change in the background paper. Because this is a 6x6 pad, I used up a lot of one kind, so I substituted for the background of this card, and you'll see where I did that. So as you can see, that's starting to come together to create this piece. Now here are the white pieces. I know it's going to be hard to see on this white background, but here, I'm going to do this. Here are the white pieces that I cut out, and because it's double-sided paper, you can see the other side has the light blue sort of pattern. You can see it there, sort of pattern that I used for the light gray pieces in the book. So you can make those whatever you wish, but I wanted to give you an option if you were to use pattern paper instead of the colors listed in the book. And it's a great way to actually give your project a little more texture. Occasionally you'll want to just branch out and try something a little different and not use the colors in the book. And once you get coordinating papers, and I think that's kind of the key, you'll see how easy it is to create pieces that have a little more texture and a little more dimension without embossing or all of that by just using pattern paper. So I'm getting these pieces into place. Now this is the little toilet paper roll, and there is a spot on there that you have to poke out. So I'm going to use my paper piercer to get that out, and use my glue, and I'll get that. Now from the book itself, it might be hard to see the little details that you add in with another layer, but there are some small pieces that you would add in here to the base of this toilet paper roll. There's a little piece of paper that you add right here, and then there's the two eye pieces. So I'm going to get those cut out, and I'll be back with you shortly. Okay, so I know these pieces are going to be hard to see on the mat, but I kind of wanted you to see how I like to keep them on the mat so that they don't get lost. And I've also cut them, like I said, a second time so the eyes could actually be white. Now when you go to put these pieces on, they may be at times hard to tell where they fit in. So you just want to dry set them in place so that you understand how all the pieces work together. Now I did that with my first card so that I would know how some of these pieces fit there. And once you do that, you can kind of get an idea of the way that they place accents and shadows, and that will help you also in choosing what kind of paper you might want to use. So let me get this teeny, and these pieces are tiny, so they just take some working with and getting used to doing tiny pieces. Like I said, I never work without my glue eraser, which I think is a fantastic tool when you're working with tiny things like this, and wet glue. Here's my nose piece. And this one requires a little bit of a turn. What you want to see is that the curved part goes towards the back. So you want to study your book for a little bit and see if you understand how the pieces fit with one another. And if you're dry fitting, you'll get a better understanding. Oops, that came off. And get a better understanding of exactly how it should look. And some of them you might have to give them a quarter turn and make them look just how you need them to. Now I'm going to get the white eye pieces, and again these are tiny. And now I'm not a tweezer person. If you're a tweezer person, then this, you know, if you're someone that can maneuver it, I will get them out from time to time, but I think sticky fingers work for me, and my paper piercer works for me, so I tend to stick with those things. And I will use my tool to help place it. And if the glue is down on the surface, what you can do is slide things into place. And I like doing that. Sometimes I'll put the glue down on the paper as opposed to the back of the piece, and then I can just slide it into place, especially when they're tiny. I think when they're tiny you want to do that more often. And this piece is itty bitty, so I'm going to drop this into place. Okay, as you can see, I have a big puddle on this one, and that's okay because I've got my glue eraser, so once I place it and it dries, I'm just going to clean up the surrounding glue. Okay, so there's my finished little skunk coming out of the outhouse. Now the saying that I'm doing for this one, I'm going to show you how I created that on the computer. I'm also going to show you how I used a new product. Well, it's not very new, but it's been coming up on the YouTube sporadically, and I wanted to show you exactly how you would use it. It's this graphic rub-ons. You create your own rub-on transfers, which is what I'm doing for the sentiment for the inside of the card. When I saw the little skunk in the outhouse, I decided I was going to make this card called "You're So Stinkin' Sweet." So that's what I wanted to type up on the computer and then show you how I use this rub-on stuff to get the sentiment on the inside. So I'm going to go ahead and turn the camera angle and show you how that works. Okay, so here's my computer with the text typed on here, and what I've done is I typed the "You're So" at 22 inches using the University Roman bold font, and then for the "Stinking Sweet" I used a Creating Keepsakes font, which is called CK Evolution, and I did that at just a little bit bigger size. I did it at 24 inches, and I also hit the bold feature so that that would come out just a little bit thicker. The other thing that I want to show you about how to get ready for printing on this is you want to be able to change your features. Now the graphics paper explains to you, oops, that's not where I wanted to go. You want to go into Properties once you hit print, and then mine in my main setup has a way to select the media type, and what I've done is if you have a mirror image, you want to go to photo paper, which is what the instructions tell you to do, but mine doesn't have a mirror image flip for text, and so what I have to do is to go to my t-shirt transfer, and then I'm also going to select the print quality as high, which I've done right here, and then I'm going to hit OK, and that's getting me ready for printing. So that's all you have to do to use the Graphics 45 rub-on material, and I'm going to show you a quick tip now on how to prepare to put that through your printer. So here I want to show you that I did a test printout with my sentiment, and I just did it on regular paper, printer paper, and you can see that I noticed right away that I was going to have a problem because it printed it out right side out. So that's when I did the t-shirt transfer, and so this is what you're going to get if that's going to print correctly. Now I wanted to make sure the sentiment fit on my card, so this is the time where you would do that. You'd make sure that it's going to fit. And then what I did with the material, the graphics material comes with this, and I hope you can see it. It's kind of opaque paper, and it has a matte side, which is the side you're looking at now, and it has a glossy side. And I know it's hard to tell on camera, but there is a distinct difference. And what I did is I just took a piece of it rather than print on a whole 8.5 by 11 sheet, and I put it over top of where I wanted it to print. That way I was sure that it would fit, and it would go through, whoops, let me get that back in frame, that it would go through my printer. So I laid it over top of my regular copy paper, and I just used a little piece of tape, and then I taped it to the copy paper, and then I stuck that back in my printer so it would actually print where I wanted it to, and I could use the smaller piece. So that's what I did for the sentiment. So now I'm going to take that piece, and you can see I've done two here. You're going to trim it down. So I'm going to separate the two. I'm just going to use one of these. And then the graphics paper comes with this additional sheet. Now you can see it's really glossy. One side has a shiny plastic material, and the other side is this kind of dull white paper. So you're going to trim this to fit over top of your sentiment. So I'm going to do that. And you can use a paper trimmer if that's easier for you, but I'm just going to rough cut it here. Now with the white paper side up, and you can see how that's different from the shiny side, you're going to lift up one corner, and I hope I can do this with my nails being short, but you're going to be left with a sticky piece of plastic. So the paper goes away, and what you're left with is the sticky. You can see it sticking to my finger. Now that goes right over top of the sentiment, and in this case it's backwards, and that's correct. Okay, so you're going to place that right over top, And then with a popsicle stick or a bone folder, you can start to rub it like you would your rub-on, and make sure that it's nice and flat and the air bubbles are gone. And I'm just going to use my basic gray rubbing tool. And once you've done that, what you want to do is peel the plastic off. Now this is a one attempt only piece, but before you do that, you're going to trim it because you don't want any halo left around the image. So you're going to trim it really down to just what you need as the rub-on piece. Now what I mean by a one attempt, you can't pick this up and put it back down because that will destroy the image. So with that same plastic piece, I'm going to lift that off and just peel that back. So you this little plastic piece comes off and you're left with the little rub-on sentiment. Now here is my completed card. Let me get that in frame here. And I just mounted a background piece of paper, and I'll break these steps down in just a minute. Zoom out here a little bit. So this is the finished card I showed you before, and I'm going to break these steps down in just a minute, but I want to be able to get the sentiment. This is what I did to the inside. So for this rub-on, I'm going to place this piece wherever I want it, in this case just right in the middle, leaving enough room to write some personal thoughts as well. And then I'm going to use my rub-on tool. And this paper is so awesome because you can really get a lot out of one sheet. And I think you get two to four. I can't quite remember sheets per package. It's really inexpensive. And it looks like a really professional stamp. And you can see there it says, "You're so stinking sweet." Let me see if I can zoom in on that. And you get the exact sentiment that you want. You can write something personal, you can customize it or monogram it, whatever you want you can print out with your computer without having to go buy a whole new stamp set, or without rummaging through your piles and piles of stamps to find the exact thing you need. So let me go ahead and continue creating the front of the card, but I did want to stop and show you how to create your own rub-on sentiments for the inside. I'm also going to take a piece of scrap paper. So to complete the card, I've taken a piece of brown basil cardstock, and it's 11 inches by 4 1/4, and I've taken just a pattern piece of paper. It's a little bit different than the sample piece. I'm using Close to Cocoa to ink it up, and this is 4 by 5 1/8, and this is just going to lay on the front of the card. You can see that the card is going to open this way. And so this piece is going to fit right in front. Now before I adhere this to the front, I do have a couple of snaps that I want to apply to the paper, and I'm going to do that with my Crocodile before applying it, before gluing it down. So let me grab my Crocodile here. And I love the Crocodile because it does the holes and the setting instead of getting out the old-fashioned hammer, which makes a lot of noise. You can just quickly make your holes and use the Crocodile to do your setting as well. Now, if you've never used a Crocodile before, you want to save the little guide that helps you know how to rotate these heads right here. These rotate around. What you're going to use for the snap is the little concave edge, and then I'm going to use the, let me see if I can see it on here, the number 3 setting for the back side. So that's going to let the snap go on there flat. And oops, I'm out of camera, and then just squeeze that down. Okay, so there's my first snap. You can get the other one on there. The other portion I like to use for the snaps is if you've got the number, let's see what number that is. I can't read the numbers on there, but it's the one that looks like a pointy cone shape. That one also helps to get the snaps really down flat. So you're just going to squeeze, and you don't have to squeeze so hard, and that sets your snap before gluing that down. So that's going to be the top part. I'm also going to take a piece of scrap paper left over from the cuts, and I'm going to run that along the bottom here. And first I'm going to ink it up. And you can do as much inking or as little inking as you want to do on this, but I just happen to like quite a bit. I didn't do it on the pieces just for time's sake, but on my finished one, you can see that I did. So I don't typically measure. I'm just kind of a pinch and cut kind of gal. So I'm going to go ahead and just glue this piece down. Use my ATG. And before I put that, well, actually I'll put this piece down at the bottom. And I've got a piece of ribbon from American Crafts, which I thought coordinated very nicely. I'm going to take a couple glue dots so that I can wrap that closed around the back. Sorry, I'm doing a lot of this off camera. Get that glue dot. Now, I usually love glue dots by this company. It's actually just called glue dots, but I don't like the version that comes on these sheets because for some reason on this particular package it's stuck to the wrong side. So I'm just going to use that to wrap around, and then I'm going to use my ATG gun to stick the rest of it down. Okay, so there's the front piece. Now I'm actually going to use another glue dot just right under the center portion to keep that from lifting up. Okay. Then I'm going to take my finished image, which is this one right here, and I'm going to use some dimensional tape for the back of it to just puff it up a little bit. Now this particular tape is pretty thin, so it doesn't do really big drastic puff up, but you can double layer it if you need more, and that works really great also. I just love that you can make it whatever size you need, and then these lift off. And I'm going to place that on the center here. This little outhouse is so cute. Okay, and the last thing I did, now this is a little bit different color ribbon than the other piece, was more gold, and that matches great, but I thought this brown would be great for a nice bow. And just to show you how I make my bows, I just do the rabbit ears like this, and then I loop them through one another. And of course this is easier not on camera, but then you're going to grab those and then just pull the bow tight. Hope you can see that. I know this ribbon's really thin, so then you can decorate. And I like to use my paper piercer to kind of leave that there and let me pull tight and let me shape that bow. And I'll do the other side. Pull the paper piercer through there and let me pull tight, and then I can shape this however I want to use that. Okay, and then I'm going to trim off the edges on the bottom there. And of course you're going to take the time to make that a really cute bow. We're just making one here as fast as I can. And I'm going to use another glue dot to stick it to the card. And that's going to go right there. Okay. And in the next, so I hope you enjoyed this video about creating a card with an image from the new Campin Critters Cricut cartridge. Please tune in again for another episode of Creative Critters Cartridge Review. Thanks for stopping by.